So Trump just signed an executive order, and I don't think it's getting the conversation and the discussion and the coverage that it requires. You know, it's the Steve Bannon strategy. They throw 100 things at you every day. Each one of them is horrible, but they know we're flooding the zone. You won't be able to focus on all of them. You'll have to pick 2 or 3 of them and focus on those, and we get away with 97 other things, right? So this is a huge deal. Pay close attention as I walk you through this here. So Democracy Docket says the following. Trump order could disenfranchise millions of voters. Now, this is actually, believe it or not, sort of a soft way of describing what's really happening here. So we know that in the last election, based on Greg Palast's incredibly detailed work, that Kamala was effectively screwed out of, I believe the number is 3.54 million more votes. So she actually won that election. She actually got more votes. Don't take my word for it. You go listen to Greg Palast. You go watch the interview Crystal and I did with Greg Palast. And he explains it in a way that is beyond convincing. He has specific numbers from specific states and how they were purged, etc. Right? So this was already a huge problem. Trump and Elon are about to take this problem and lock it in and make it worse. Okay? So the title in Democracy Docket, Trump order could disenfranchise millions of voters. That's one way of describing it. Another way of describing it is Trump and Elon plan to rig elections in 2026 and 2028. All right, so let me walk you through this here. We have a good thread that lays it out. New, what if I told you Trump's new executive order could rig elections and give Elon Musk power over who gets to vote? Gives Elon Musk power over that. By the way, that's literal. That's what's in this. All right, let me walk you through it. This isn't your typical MAGA voter suppression. It's a blueprint for authoritarian control. Here's what's in it. The MAGA fever dream executive order requires government-issued documentary proof of citizenship to use the federal voter registration form, even though only U.S. citizens can vote in federal elections and already swear to it on the form under penalty of perjury. What that means is it's an attempt to disenfranchise millions of poor folks, low-income folks, minority communities, because not everybody has a fucking passport. Not everybody has a fucking driver's license. And for you to say, oh, you have to show that in order to vote. Well, what if I don't have a driver's license? What if I don't have a passport? I'm an American citizen. I was born here. I've always been here, but I don't have either of those things. They say, fuck off. You can't vote. So it's a way to take away many people's right to vote, particularly lower income people and minority communities. All right, here we go. It gives Elon Musk's Doge more power to comb through state voter files. What? Elon is going to have the ability under the law to comb through state voter files? Based on their track record, this is a recipe for unprecedented voter purges, major human and database errors, the disenfranchisement of thousands or even millions of eligible Americans. So in other words, in a lot of red states, they have these laws on the books. All you have to do is question the citizenship status of somebody else, and it defaults to they're not allowed to vote. Here, they could have a provisional ballot, and that's it, and they could use the provisional ballot. But guess what? Like 50% of the provisional ballots don't get counted anyway. They get thrown right out. We know this all because of Greg Palast and his detailed work. If somebody challenges your right to vote, they default to assuming that person is correct. Not, hey, you have no evidence. Hey, how can you say that? If this person's here to vote, of course, we're going to allow them to vote, right? It defaults to, this is a Jim Crow era law that they revived in many red states. And that's what happened in the last election. What they're going to try to do is scale that to the whole country. They're also going to try to do spoil more ballots. In other words, if you put your middle initial but you weren't supposed to, or if you didn't put your middle initial but you were supposed to, if you have one line is messed up, or you don't put the date, or they find any little thing, they go, nope, not good enough, throw it out, throw it out, throw it out, throw it out. This is how this works. This is what they do. They use a legal veneer of specificity to just throw out the votes they don't want to count. Terrifying stuff, right? But guys, this is the history of this country. This is how it works. This is how it works. Go read about the tests they used to give to minorities, right? Poll taxes. They do all these things to try to get the result they want while eliminating the votes they don't want. And they have a bullshit cover story about, oh, no, we're not just disenfranchising them because they vote Democrat and they're poor or they're a minority. We're doing it because look at the ballot. The ballot, it's not really legible. I can't read it. So I guess I got to throw it out. Oh, the middle initials there wasn't supposed to be there. Or the date is messed up, or they come up with anything. That's what they do. And they do this in red states already. Here's another one that they do. Take a name that sounds like a traditional African-American name. If one person with that name dies, purge the voter rolls of everybody that has that name. So one person with the name, I don't know, let's say Leonard Johnson dies, right? Let's just make up a name. They go, okay, this one died. Well, we have 413 Leonard Johnsons that are in this state. Throw them all out. Now no more Leonard Johnsons get to vote. This is what it's death by 1,000 cuts. And now you're going to let Elon Musk do this? Elon Musk, we already know he's a fucking liar. We already know he was out there saying we have 150-year-olds and 200-year-olds getting Social Security checks when we don't, right? That was a lie. That was the way the system worked for coding. It would it would default to a certain date. If there's not perfect information, it defaults to that date. He lied and said it was 200-year-olds getting Social Security. Just the other day, he was like, fraud is being committed because we have children getting Social Security checks. That's fraud. Cut off all that money. You idiot. That's for kids whose both of their parents died. He just cuts it off. I don't think you understand how bad this is. I don't think you understand how bad this is. Only eligible Americans vote. Even conservative think tanks like the Heritage Foundation, creators of Project 2025, found just 85 cases where people who were not citizens voted in 2 billion votes cast over the past 20 years. So they did a study on voter fraud and they found it basically doesn't exist. 85 votes out of 2 billion were like non-citizens voting. 85 out of 2 billion. This isn't a problem. So it's a solution in search of a problem. But what they really want to do is just purge the rolls of all the undesirables who they think will vote Democrat. Trump is trying to rig elections and stop the American people from holding him accountable. They're recycling a scheme courts already blocked and handing it to Elon Musk, whose roots are in apartheid South Africa, to decide who's American enough to vote. The order also targets states that count mail ballots received after Election Day and threatens to cut off federal election funds unless they comply. So that's the other thing. If you don't comply with this executive order, the federal government are just going to cut off all the federal money that your state gets, which is not survivable. This could disenfranchise U.S. military personnel and overseas voters. DOJ has warned it may be illegal. So this one is, they say like, oh, all the ballots that get to the state after Election Day, they're all fraudulent. Meanwhile, they're not. It's U.S. military personnel overseas. It's people who, maybe you voted, you sent it in 2 days before the election, but it gets there a day after the election, right? So it gets there in 3 days. Well, that's still a legitimate vote. They cast the vote before the election, right? But what they'll try to do is say, no, it has to be here on this day or that's it. Well, again, at that point, you're just trying to rig the election and throw out the ones you don't like. Because as we all know, mail-in ballots in particular, Democrats are more likely to do those. Let's be clear about the chaos plan here. One, Elon Musk's Doge floods us with so-called fraud. That's what they'll say is the problem, even though it's not. Then Trump points to the chaos to claim fraud and stop eligible Americans from voting. The goal, more power for Trump, less power for us. Just like the massive voter suppression law moving through Congress, this is all about locking the doors to democracy and handing the keys to oligarchs and super-rich campaign donors. We've seen this before. Judges have ruled that proof of citizenship for federal voter registration is illegal. The Supreme Court declined to hear appeals, effectively affirming that these mandates on the federal form are illegal and unenforceable. We've also seen this playbook before. Intimidation, disinformation, and distraction. It's a power play to score voters and get headlines, probably to distract from the war plans group chat scandal. We faced down power-hungry politicians before, and every time we come back tougher, louder, and more relentless. Read more and join Fair Fight Action in fighting to protect American democracy. So yeah, Fair Fight Action, they're one of the people fighting back against this. Democracy Docket, I believe, Mark Elias, I think he might have a case on this as well. But make no mistake about it. The idea is to say, and there's going to be a bunch of legal cases over this because this voter board commission that Trump is trying to force to do these things, there's no legal authority for him to force them to do anything. They're not under the direct control of the president, right? But he's trying to make them do it. And again, so there will be court cases over this. But what this is an attempt to do, take the most restrictive states that are the worst when it comes to voting rights, and they have all these ways to purge people they don't want, right? The mail-in ballots, they do that with the mail-in ballots. Texas, They threw out like millions of mail-in ballots based on fucking nothing because the attorney general wanted them gone. This is an attempt to take a Texas-style system, an anti-voting rights style system from the states, and scale it for the whole country. Force every state to do the same thing. We've never seen anything like this. We've never seen anything like this in modern American history. 5-alarm fire. I know I say it every day, but that's what this is. It's five-alarm fire. And just like the voter disenfranchisement fucked up the last election, what if I told you they're trying to codify it the country over, not just in certain states, and lock it in to try to guarantee Republican rule for a generation? Are we just going to sit back and take it, or are we going to rise up? Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.